When the initial announcement of the Persona ports happened, I was happy, but mostly for other people since I had already played Persona 4 Golden on PC and Persona 5 Royal on PS4. Persona 3 Portable's inclusion didn't really spark any excitement from me due to my past history with the game, but something has happened since then. I've started getting excited about giving this game another try. I know I'm not alone in bouncing off of Persona 3 initially, but there are several reasons I'll get into in this video as for why I think I'm ready to give it another try with the new ports. If you have never played Persona 3 before, or had trouble getting into it like I did, please feel free to watch and see if the reasons for my change of heart make sense for you too. As for those of you who have played and loved Persona 3, I hope you enjoy, and you can try and use this video to convince those on the fence to give the game a try. I'll start out first with the background information on Persona 3, and this port specifically. Persona 3 is the fourth game of the Persona series, a spin-off of the Shin Megami Tensei series. These JRPGs blend social simulation with commanding your own set of demons while exploring through dungeons. Persona 3 is regarded by some as the codifier of the modern style of Persona games behind the director Hashino, further built upon in Persona 4 and 5. The game is developed by Atlus and now published by Sega. Atlus was still an independent studio when Persona 3 initially released. Persona 3 originally came out in Japan in 2006 for the PS2, with the North American version coming out in 2007 and the European and Australian in 2008. By the time those releases happened, Persona 3 FES, an expanded re-release also on the PS2 with new additions to the main story and an epilogue called The Answer, had released as well. Then in 2009, Persona 3 Portable was released on the PSP, adding in a female protagonist and some battle setting changes if the player desired, albeit with the sacrifice of no more direct roaming in the environments. This final portable version is the one being ported, although there are plenty of fans who were disappointed that FES wasn't ported, or at the very least added on to Portable's previous editions. For the most part though, these are very similar experiences, and they all got glowing reviews at the time, along with a passionate fan base that continue to hype up Persona 3 to this day. Persona 3 is set at Gekukan High School in the city of Uwatodai. You play as a new student who gets wrapped up in the events of the Dark Hour. The Dark Hour is the time between days that only a few people are aware of. Those few people include a group at your school called the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad that you join. Your task is to investigate the large tower called Tartarus at the center of the Dark Hour. To do so, you'll need to summon personas to fight for you. Your player character has a special power that allows you to use multiple personas to swap between in battle, unlike your fellow party members who are limited to just one. Once you've used your evoker to summon the persona, you can begin to fight through the shadows in your way as you try to uncover the mysteries of the Dark Hour and Tartarus. But there is more going on, and some of it will deeply affect you and your fellow party members. It's an intriguing and mysterious premise with a lot of twists and turns available, and the cast of characters were quite good as well. Why then did I bounce off of this so hard initially? The answer to that lies not with the story, characters, and premise, but with the gameplay. At the time, I had been watching a playthrough of Persona 5, which is what got me interested in playing the Persona series myself. Since I owned no PlayStation console, that meant that Persona 5 and Persona 4 were out, but emulation is always a thing, and I did have a PSP emulator. That led me to Persona 3 Portable, and I decided to give it a try as my first Persona experience. While there was plenty that seemed familiar to me from watching someone else play Persona 5, I was quickly dismayed by several of the systems in Persona 3. First off, I didn't know that you could switch characters to your control in P3 Portable, so not being able to control my party members was a bummer. The levels of Tartarus seemed boring, and I had no clue how far I was supposed to be getting every night, so I was concerned I wasn't doing enough and would fail the game by being unprepared. Beyond this, party members could get tired or sick and would stop me from even visiting Tartarus on a particular night, which exacerbated my worries about falling behind. Then there was the worry about the social links, which I knew from someone telling me could break and reset if I didn't choose the right option. I also was playing without a guide since I wanted to feel like this was my experience, but ultimately, all of these factors made my experience more tense than enjoyable. Oh, and the lack of being able to walk around the areas of the game also threw me off. Now, I know these issues are a balance between my inexperience with the series, unrealistic expectations on my part, and a lack of confidence coming up against some older, harsher gameplay systems. Several of these are solvable now, or at least not nearly as intimidating, but I'm telling you all this to make it clear how it all stacked up together to cause me to drop Persona 3 Portable. That's not to say my experience was all bad. I was really enjoying the interactions with the characters, which may have made my worries about reversing social links worse. The story had a good amount of intrigue even if it was slow going at first. The music and atmosphere of the game was top notch and remains the most memorable part of the game for me even several years after playing it for only about 8 hours. These good memories of my time playing the game certainly helped me feel like I could potentially return to the game someday, but the bigger reason would be Persona 3's fans and their enthusiasm. They are a passionate bunch, pushing the game as a top-notch experience with a strong story and the most cohesive story themes and gameplay integration in the series, at least according to them, but the consistent praise of the game, at least when it's not accompanied by people trying to tear down Persona 4 and 5 while praising 3, reignited my interest. Now, I could reiterate their reasons myself, but I thought it would be better if you heard them directly from a big Persona 3 fan. That person being the wonderful LadyVirgilia. Take it away, lady.
So first, I have to admit I'm one of those people who's really sad we're not getting the answer epilogue with these ports. Though don't get me wrong, it's not like Persona 3 The Journey can't stand on its own. In fact, this main story comes to a very satisfying conclusion that totally nails the themes that developer Hashino and his team have been building up towards all game via its narrative and mechanics. In terms of the former, P3's cast benefits from having the most balanced character arcs within the main story of all the Hashino-era games. The party social links available add some additional perspective to the characters, but they're not necessary to see the main development of each one. That leads me to how satisfying it is that each party member evolves to their second-tier persona not via their social link, but simply as a progression of the main story. From a Ludo narrative perspective, this just further solidifies each cast member's individual growth as canon, or in my view at least. And speaking of game mechanics, one in particular that was introduced in P3 really adds to the theme of contentment versus apathy. You see, while it's true that the Arcana have always been incorporated in the Persona series, P3 was the first to really double down on the concept of tarot archetypes and the Fool's Journey, as was popularized by Carl Jung's followers. In the briefest of terms, each arcana/tarot that the protagonist encounters represents a certain type of person, and by meeting and learning from these different kinds of people, the Fool matures and comes to understand the beauty of life, the joy we derive from human relationships, experiencing new things and building memories, hardships and all. This concept plays a significant role in the final boss fight, which to this day remains one of my favorite ones conceptually and mechanically of all time. And like most Atlus games, the final boss OST is beyond epic and is something to look forward to. And on an added note, there's a shift in a certain particular OST in the last playable month that's honestly one of the most impactful things I've personally experienced when it comes to music in a video game. Beyond these things, mechanically, Portable comes with a lot of quality of life changes that address many of the misgivings Rio already talked about. One of these is thankfully the lack of jealousy/reverse social link mechanic. This does not make a return from Fez, and as far as I'm aware, there's only 2 social links, one in the male route, the other in the femces, that have a possibility of reversing if you answer incorrectly in the final ranks. I think a lot of P3 guides reference Fez only, so it doesn't surprise me that there's a misconception about Portable's social link mechanics compared to the PS2 game. There's also the ability to set all party members to direct commands that Rio already mentioned if that's something you'd like to do. Speaking of nice options, the new ports will include quick save functionality, meaning you'll be able to save from any point in-game. I also need to draw attention to the amazing mod that restores all the fantastic animated cutscenes from the FES version back into the male version of Portable's PC port. These cutscenes really do a lot for immersion, so I can't recommend it enough to any of you who'll be playing on PC. And huge thanks to the modders. You can find the link to it down in the description below. I also highly encourage everyone to watch the story of the answer, the epilogue from FES that wasn't included with Portable after finishing the port. Overall, the Persona series is just fascinating due to how it serves as a comprehensive commentary on the socio-cultural climate and issues affecting modern Japan during the time period of each respective game's release. In Persona 3's case in particular, it really spoke to all who were still coping and grieving over forever lost opportunities during Japan's lost decade and its aftermath at that point. The apathy syndrome in-game is a reference to the common Japanese mentality of shikata ga nai, or as most closely translated, it can't be helped. Though in the end, the exploration and message of how we can deal with death, tragedy, and loss is a universal one, and is a huge reason why, on top of everything I already mentioned, Persona 3 is my favorite Persona game. P3's main story is literally referred to as the journey for a reason, so I very much hope it's an enjoyable journey for you all. But with that said, I'd like to thank Rio for letting me pop in and say my piece. And now I'll be handing it back to him.
This is exactly why I'm now excited to play Persona 3 again. This enthusiasm and fascination with all the elements of Persona 3 and how they come together and make an amazing game is something I'd love to fully experience for myself. I have a similar sense of delight in how the Persona games combine Jungian psychology with modern Japanese social commentary, and at least according to some, Persona 3 is that combination at its finest. I also look forward to seeing just how well integrated the story and gameplay are, because that is, as you just heard, a strong suit of the game. Beyond the enthusiasm of its many fans, the other reason I think my opinion on playing Persona 3 again has changed is that I will be going into this playthrough with a clearer idea of what the game is and how I can enjoy the experience. Going into playing a game with realistic expectations is crucial in my efforts to enjoy many different games. My expectations now are tempered by experience. Since my first attempt at playing Persona 3, I have played through Persona 5 Royal and Persona 4 Golden. I'm no longer a Persona newbie, and furthermore, Persona 3 is not a great starting point for new players in my opinion, so it makes sense that it didn't work for me the first time. My experience and knowledge gathered from playing P5 and P4 has boosted my confidence in being able to play P3 and have a good time with it. The systems of the game haven't changed, but my expectations and perspective have, and that's why I think this time will be different. This won't work for everyone, but I'm hopeful it will for me, and that's why I can't wait to get started. Right after I finish Fire Emblem Engage. Why did they have to come out so close to each other? What do you think? Is Persona 3 a game that you're looking forward to trying now or trying again? Perhaps you're looking forward to the Persona 4 Golden port instead, in which case that is a great option as well. I highly recommend that game too. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video, and a big shout out and thank you to LadyVirgilia for her assistance with the video. She is not only a lovely person, but also an amazing creator, and her Persona videos covering 3, 4, and 5 are fantastic. If you have not already checked out her content and you are even slightly interested in Persona, you owe it to yourself to give her videos a watch. Before you go do that though, the usual YouTube things of liking, sharing, and commenting are more than just appreciated, they're necessary to keep this channel going, and I thank all of you who do so. Subscribe to make sure you keep up with my next videos. This is gonna be a busy month for them, and I hope to see you all there. Have a great day, and happy gaming.